What's up everyone, welcome to this video. We have only a few days left before the inauguration of Donald Trump, and today we're going to have a look at Joe Biden's farewell address. Now, this address was given about 2 days ago, and the first thing that I found quite strange is that here on the YouTube page of Fox News, there's only 97, as you can see here, 97 views in 2 days for what is the address of outcoming President of the United States. This is very low. If you think about on YouTube, you know, a cat video will get at least 1 million views. So we have Joe Biden here not even being able to get like 1/10 of what a cat video does. But nevertheless, let's listen to his farewell address and let's see what are the last words that Joe Biden is going to leave the American people with, knowing that he currently has a very, very unfavorable opinion. Only 36% of US adults approve of his presidency. So let's not waste any time. Let's listen to what Joe Biden has to say.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from the Oval Office. Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, by my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans.
So here, the first thing, we have Joe Biden here sort of taking credit for the peace deal. You know, he's been in charge the whole time and he was not able to get anything. And then Donald Trump gets elected. And, you know, before he even takes office, as he had said, I'm going to get everybody to come to the table and reach an agreement. And we know that behind the scene, the Trump envoy has really been putting pressure on both sides to come to an agreement. Trump, of course, having threatened that if all the hostages were not freed by the time that he took office, things would get really messy. And, you know, as it is the case with many of the subjects that were contentious in the Biden administration, when it comes to foreign policy, things are falling in line very quickly now with Trump just a few days away from taking charge in the White House. People are very nervous, to say the least, at what the upcoming Trump administration is going to do. And now we're seeing sort of all the players on the international scene being a lot more worried now that Trump is going to be back in the White House compared to what was going on with Joe Biden. So here, the first thing that he starts with is basically taking credit for something that he didn't really do. Now let's listen to the rest.
This will be my final address to you, the American people, from the Oval Office, from this desk as president. And I've been thinking a lot about who we are and maybe more importantly, who we should be. Long ago in New York Harbor, an iron worker installed beam after beam, day after day. He was joined by steel workers, stonemasons, engineers. They built not just a single structure, but a beacon of freedom. The very idea of America was so big, we felt the entire world needed to see. The Statue of Liberty, a gift from France after our Civil War. Like the very idea of America, it was built not by one person, but by many people, from every background and from around the world. Like America, the Statue of Liberty is not standing still. Her foot literally steps forward atop a broken chain of human bondage. She's on the march, and she literally moves. She was built to sway back and forth to withstand the fury of stormy weather, to stand the test of time because storms are always coming. She sways a few inches, but she never falls into the current below. An engineering marvel. The Statue of Liberty is also an enduring symbol of the soul of our nation, a soul shaped by forces that bring us together and by forces that pull us apart. And yet, through good times and tough times, we've withstood it all. A nation of pioneers and explorers, of dreamers and doers, of ancestors native to this land, of ancestors who came by force, a nation of immigrants who came to build a better life, a nation holding the torch of the most powerful idea ever in the history of the world, that all of us are created equal, that all of us deserve to be treated with dignity, justice, and fairness, that democracy must defend and be defined and be imposed, moved in every way possible.
All right, let's stop it here. Let's talk a little bit. First of all, he can barely read his prompter. He can barely deliver the speech. The speech itself is, his speechwriter is just terrible. It's just platitudes after platitudes, like it has been the case throughout his whole presidency. And, it especially rings true after the presidency that Joe Biden has had. I'm not sure what it is with his watch and his... whatever chain that is that he has on his wrist, but overall, it seems it's very strange that when he's reading the prompter, that they set it up in this room so bad, and it's not the first time, and we've said it already before in the addresses that he has given out in the Oval Office. The way they set up the prompter, he looks like he's trying to look past the camera. Maybe they have the speech on a screen that's behind the camera or something, but he doesn't look at the camera, and it's very weird because he seems he has a lot of trouble to actually read the text, and so he's like squinting his eyes trying to look and trying to give his speech, and it's just terrible. And he looks very old in that he doesn't look in good shape, and he doesn't look like the kind of guy who actually could have been able to have another mandate here. Like if he had been elected president and if he had to do the job for another 4 years, there's absolutely no way. And we know, of course, that at least over the last year and perhaps over the last 2 years, really he hasn't been in charge, and he's been barely able to even make the public appearances that are required of the position that he holds.
Our rights, our freedoms, our dreams. But we know the idea of America, our institution, our people, our values that uphold it are constantly being tested. Ongoing debates about power and the exercise of power, but whether we lead by the example of our power or the power of our example, whether we show the courage to stand up to the abuse of power or we yield to it. After 50 years at the center of all of this, I know that believing in the idea of America means respecting the institutions that govern a free society, the presidency, the Congress, the courts, a free and independent press, institutions that are rooted, they just might not reflect the timeless words, but they echo the words of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Rooted in the timeless words of the Constitution, we the people. Our system of separation of powers, checks and balances. It may not be perfect, but it's maintained our democracy for nearly 250 years, longer than any other nation in history that's ever tried such a bold experiment. In the past 4 years, our democracy is held strong. And every day I've kept my commitment to be president for all Americans through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history.
And, how delusional do you have to be to give a speech like that? And I think it really falls onto the speechwriter. It's these people are really not grasping what the general sentiment about Joe Biden, his presidency, and the decision that he has taken over the last 4 years have been received by the people. And I think the result of the election is a testament to that. A major defeat for the Democrats, and Joe Biden wasn't even the candidate. They had to replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris because Joe Biden was so hated by Americans that he stood absolutely no chance whatsoever to be reelected. They had to do a last-minute bait and switch to try to be able to win this election. And yet the stench of Joe Biden's presidency was such that even someone like Kamala Harris, coming as someone new, was not able to move away from the terrible, terrible opinion that people had of Joe Biden and that reflected on her, despite her trying to distance herself. And now he comes out and says that, he's the one who upheld the principle and the institutions of democracy, when everything that he did during his presidency was the exact opposite. And he undermined democracy and all the democratic institutions worse than anybody, even probably worse than Trump did in his term.
I've had a great partner in Vice President Kamala Harris. It's been the honor of my life to see the resilience of essential workers getting us through a once-in-a-century pandemic, the heroism of service members and first responders keeping us safe, the determination of advocates standing up for our rights and our freedoms instead of losing their jobs to an economic crisis that we inherited. Millions of Americans now have the dignity of work. Millions of entrepreneurs and companies creating new businesses and industries, hiring American workers, using American products. And together, we've launched a new era of American possibilities. One of the greatest modernizations of infrastructure in our entire history, from new roads, bridges, clean water, affordable high-speed internet for every American. We invented the semiconductor, smaller than the tip of my little finger.
And again, he goes on and talks about things that haven't been done, things that don't exist, things that have been voted by Congress, that have been appropriated. The money has been spent, but yet none of that has happened. They've spent billions of dollars to allegedly connect, areas to high-speed internet. It hasn't been done. He's talking about infrastructure where they spend trillions of dollars literally to promote this green infrastructure, and all those projects, none of them have panned out successfully. We know of the electric chargers in the middle of nowhere at the cost of $1 billion per charger, some nonsense like that, and he brags about this as if this was a great accomplishment, when really it has been the worst wasting of resources that any administration have done, really, in modern times, probably ever in this country.
And now it's bringing those chip factories and jobs back to America where they belong, creating thousands of jobs. Finally, giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug prices for millions of seniors. And finally, doing something to protect our children and our families by passing the most significant gun safety law in 30 years and bringing violent crime to a 50-year low, meeting our sacred obligation to over 1 million veterans so far who are exposed to toxic materials, and to their families, providing medical care and education benefits and more for their families. It will take time to feel the full impact of all we've done together. But the seeds are planted, and they'll grow and they'll bloom for decades to come.
And it really hasn't taken that long to feel the full impact of his presidency and the terrible decision that he's made. And, the election was, of course, the result of that. And the inflation, happened very, very quickly. And I think we're going to see, in the coming months, in the coming years, perhaps the full effect of the disastrous decision that the Biden administration has taken. We know of, the financial situation, how the inversion of the yield curve at the deepest point that we've seen, something comparable to 1929. And we're probably going to see a major, major financial crisis here on the horizon as Donald Trump is going to take, over this sinking ship that Biden is leaving. And, he's pretending that in the future, we're going to remember what he did as something great when he hasn't even left office yet. And we already have, taken the lessons of the Biden administration. And, as said before, only how many 36% of US adults see his presidency favorably. We've already drawn the conclusion as to the Joe Biden presidency, and it is a dismal failure. Not even having Joe Biden leaving office yet, we have already concluded that nobody likes what he has done.
Home, we've created nearly 17 million new jobs, more than any other single administration, a single term. More people have health care than ever before. And overseas, we've strengthened NATO. Ukraine is still free. And we pulled ahead of our competition with China, and so much more. I'm so proud of how much we've accomplished.
Literally, there's nothing that he says that a person with a little bit of common sense would listen to and say, oh yeah, that's right. Everything he says is the opposite. NATO is weaker than ever. There is war raging in Europe. China is taking over in, all domain, industry, manufacturing, militarily. And is threatening all the allies of the U.S. in the region. This guy cannot be serious, and his speechwriters cannot be serious. You look at this address, and it sounds like a joke. It sounds like a SNL skit. This guy cannot be serious.
Together for the American people. And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed. That's why I've upheld my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example.
And again, this is, we already know that this is absolutely false. And he has bragged in the media about it, basically saying that he's leaving landmines everywhere to the Donald Trump administration to try to set them up for failure. And now we're learning today that, the Treasury is running out of money on the 21st. So literally, on the day that Joe Biden is going to leave office and Donald Trump is going to take in, the coffers of the state are empty. They've spent it all. Not only have they spent all the money that the Treasury has, they've tapped out the bond market, as we were talking about the yield curve inversion. They've not only ruined the Treasury, but they've also borrowed as much money as they could that Trump is not going to be able to even borrow money. And there is $9 trillion of short-term T-bills that need to be rolled over by the Trump administration. So this is going to be very bad. This what it means is a big financial crisis is going to come, and this is the work of Joe Biden. And so now he's pretending that he's leaving the incoming administration in a great situation, where really he is leaving them with the sinking Titanic and saying, good luck, I'm off in the lifeboat, and you guys try to sort it out.
I have no doubt that America's in a position to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And this is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before. More than a century ago, but the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. Just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to. Workers want rights to earn their fair share. You know, they were dealt into the deal, and it helped put us on a path to building the largest middle class, the most prosperous century any nation in the world has ever seen. And we've got to do that again. In the last 4 years, that is exactly what we've done.
Absolutely delusional. This is incredible. And no one has heard the middle class like Joe Biden has heard the middle class, and that's exactly why Donald Trump won the election. And now he's trying to brag that he's done great for the middle class. This is absolutely delusional.
People should be able to make as much as they can, play by the same rules, pay their fair share of taxes. So much is at stake. Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country, from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history of the world, and the rest of the world is trying to model it now. It's working, creating jobs and industries of the future.
What is this guy doing? Wagging his finger in your face, pretending that the other failures of his administration are things to brag about. This is, it's unbearable.
Now, we've proven we don't have to choose protecting the environment and growing the economy. We're doing both. The powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. We must not be bullied into sacrificing the future of our children and our grandchildren. We must keep pushing forward and push faster. There's no time to waste. It's also clear that American leadership in technology is an unparalleled source of innovation that can transform lives. We see the same dangers of the concentration of technology, power, and wealth. In his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
All right. And here he goes on, the most delusional rant of this whole address, thinking of himself, of Eisenhower, completely delusional. And, sort of repeating the words of Eisenhower, saying, oh, yeah, like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, Eisenhower warned us. Yeah, he warned us of people like Joe Biden, of warmongers and the military-industrial complex, unchecked power, people who would want to use that power to enrich themselves and wage war all over the planet. And that's exactly what Joe Biden has done throughout his career, whether it was in the Senate or, later on in the White House. There was never a war that Joe Biden was against, from the war in Iraq to Afghanistan to everywhere to now in Ukraine. Joe Biden was always for all the wars that ever had been for the United States. And what Eisenhower warned us about was politicians like Joe Biden, and now he's trying to like turn the tables and say, "Oh, well, I come with a warning," as if years from now we're gonna look back and we say, "Oh yeah, Joe Biden was right, and he was the guy who warned us about this great danger." When in fact, everything that he's saying about social media platform and the big tech is exactly the opposite. He is the one who weaponized big tech and promoted disinformation and misinformation and forced the tech companies to embrace the lies that the government wanted to push. And now we know, now that he's on his way out, we've had, recently Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast telling how Joe Biden was pressuring him and his company to essentially censor everything that the political opposition wanted to discuss. Even memes wanted to be banned by Joe Biden. People censored, people deleted from social media. And of course, we had already a few years back the Twitter files released by Elon Musk when he took over Twitter and turned it into X. And we had all the background info, all the people from the Biden administration having direct entry in the software of Twitter to delete accounts of people, censor people who said something that they disagreed with, or people who criticized them. And now he's coming out and saying, "Oh, I have this big warning. These guys are gonna try to do the same thing that we did," or something like that. It doesn't even make sense, because he's the one who used social media to empower himself when he was already president, to gain even more power and prevent people from criticizing him. And now that, of course, social media, with platforms like X, have sort of freed themselves from censorship, the boat has turned around, and now, of course, people are free to criticize Biden and the Democrats, and it has been terrible for them in this election because, of course, all the previous elections, you had the censors at Twitter who deleted the accounts of anybody who disagreed with the Democrats, and this time around, it wasn't the case, and of course, it turned out in a disaster fashion for the Democrats. And now Joe Biden, sort of summoning Eisenhower, or the memory of Eisenhower, to try to pretend that he's got a great warning and that this guy has been a warrior for democracy and all that, and for free speech and against misinformation, when really it couldn't be further from the truth. And quite frankly, we're 10 minutes in, and it's enough BS from this guy. I think there's only a few days left, a couple of days left now for Joe Biden. We're not going to see any of him anymore. And, it's probably a good thing. I don't know what's left in this address, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. That was the passage that was sort of the most irrational, really. It was absolutely ridiculous. This guy saying, "Oh, I'm here to warn you about this thing that I did and that I put in place." But as a matter of fact, now it's probably going to be the opposite. We're going to have less government overreach into private companies, and especially social media companies. Now we've seen already Facebook and Meta that has given up on fact checking from NGOs, and now they're going to rely on community notes the same way Twitter has done. And of course, it has already proven very bad for the Democrats. Now, the Democrats leaving Twitter and going to other platforms like Blue Sky, because of course, every time they say something that's false, now they have the whole community community, essentially community notes, right under their post, and all the references showing that what they're saying is not true, and they're not happy with that, and so they're seeking refuge in a new social media platform. They already had tried it in the past with Threads. It didn't work out. Now they have this Blue Sky app. It's not going to work out. They will be back on X, and they will be complaining all day long that people who disagree with them are allowed to voice their opinion. But most likely going forward, that's the way it's going to be anyway. We have only now just a couple of days left of this Joe Biden administration. On the 20th, Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated. We will, of course, follow this inauguration, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to like.
Hit me with that like, and sub to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell. Click that bit, alright. The algo recommends, for she gon' like. The algo knows you well. Hit me with that like, subscribe to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell.